So now we're going to, again, talk about, well, I said the two themes of today has been extra senses and the dimension of time. And so I'd like to invite Eva Zavol and Bran Lumen from Dentsu on stage because we're going to be talking about the world's the next iteration of the world's longest-running attention study, the Dentsu Attention Economy Project, and the next chapter of that. And I think that what's interesting about this is it does involve an awful lot. The Dentsu has been investigating sound, music, podcasts, radio as part of their thing, so they're well aware of the importance of sound. But what's interesting here is we're going to be talking about the long-term effects of attention on recall. And again, this is why I wanted to come back to this theme of sound, this theme of time and memory formation. But to kick us off, I'd like to invite Eva Zavol, who's been leading what's called the Dentsu Brand Reset Project, to say where we are and what's coming. Eva Zavol, please.
I feel like a celebrity. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Are we hot? A little bit. Okay. I will not take more than 5 minutes. This is just a little preamble to a hopefully not a boring panel that is to follow. So what I'm about to share with you is absolutely nothing new. The struggle between brand and demand is not new, but it persists, right? And it's been compounded by the precision era of advertising that we find ourselves in because of search, because of increased feed activity. We have started to overfocus on short-term ROI because arguably it's become easier to activate, seemingly easier to measure. And all of this came from brand building budgets. So as a result of this, brands have started to, well, not grow. They have started to struggle to grow, and Les can give you a whole lecture about this. So we've been in this space for quite some time. But thankfully, around 2020, something interesting happened. Brands have started to take notice. They have started to recognize that they are not growing the way that should be growing. And one of the first brands to very openly and very bravely put this out there was Adidas, that communicated very openly and publicly with the industry that they have overinvested in performance marketing, and that was actually killing their brand. So they decided to reset on their brand versus demand investment. And a few other brands followed suit with very similar messaging. Nike being the most recent one in 2024, huge case coming out of the US. And this is a good thing for us, right? We like bravery. We like brands going a little mad. And this signifies that there is a shift happening. Brands are starting to focus on going back to brand advertising. And when we think about brand advertising, we think about video. Video continues to be the top vehicle for brand building. But of course it has transformed, right? There's a lot of short form content happening right now, new ways of distributing and consuming long form content, and everything is everywhere all at once. So this makes attention much harder to earn. So the fight for attention, you can say, is truly fierce. We at Carat, at Dentsu, at Lumen, obviously believe that attention sits at the heart of effectiveness. And we've been with Lumen on a 7-year journey now with the attention economy, through which we have proven and demonstrated that attention does deliver short-term impact. But given this renewed focus on going back to brand, really exciting times for us in advertising and marketing, we want more. And so we decided to go a little or a whole lot deeper. And we started this project called the Brand Reset. And the Brand Reset is all about proving attention's power in driving long-lasting or long-term sales and brand impact through all of these new, modern, next-gen video platforms and services, which are slowly, gradually taking over linear television. And public service disclaimer, I am not killing linear television, but it is at a global, gradual decline. And so the Brand Reset is brought to life by our lovely friends and good friends at Lumen, who bring a wealth of knowledge and attention to this. They're doing all of the eye tracking for us, collating and collecting thousands of attention data points across a multitude of platforms, doing very sophisticated analysis. So that's what we have on the one side. Now, on the other hand, we have Kantar. With Kantar, we're going to deliver the data that's needed to demonstrate the long-term sales impact of all of the different individual next-gen platforms and services that are part of this study and that I cannot disclose to you today for legal purposes, but we will disclose them soon. So what we're doing with Kantar is quite interesting. We've been working with a lot of very smart researchers. Believe it or not, but one of them has a PhD in probability research. He has quite the brain. We've been also tapping into a bunch of Kantar databases. The most important one for this study is Brand Z, which is a global brands ranking that is fueled by both brand equity and financial outcomes. Now, this is important because I am after demonstrating this long-term sales impact of next-gen video platforms. So, in the end, we will have this huge attention database here. This Kantar database here. We will then fuse these databases to create the Brand Reset, which will ultimately become the world's or the industry's largest next-gen video study demonstrating the power of attention in driving long-term outcomes. So if this is something that's relevant for you, if this has piqued your interest, just scan this QR code, and when we're ready to launch in the second half of the year, we'll send you a copy of the white paper. And with that, we will kick off our riveting panel.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Eva. So we'll leave the QR code up there because this is a presentation that has learned from our previous presentations about the power of frequency and recency. So you'll be hearing it. This might be the first time you hear about it. This is not going to be the last. And hopefully we can entice you and you'll remember it an awful lot more the next time you hear about it or when it gets launched at Adweek or later in the year. Okay, so I've just got a few questions. Before we start, so everyone knows Les. Bram, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Bram. I'm the Global Head of Strategy for Carat. I'm very lucky to be on the stage with these wonderful people talking about attention. Very good.
But thank you for introducing yourself, Bram. But we're going to start with Les. Now, Les, you're not part of this project, but I think it might be interesting to see that you're the godfather of it, obviously, because this emphasis on the long and the short-term effects of advertising and attention to advertising, I think Eva has been talking about long and short. Isn't there a book called I don't know? Someone I think. I don't know, was it Sharp or was it Ritson?
Yeah, someone like that, yeah.
Someone like that.
It's a cracking good read, very reasonably priced, still available on Amazon.
It's not reasonably priced. The last time I saw it, it was going for 150 quid.
But maybe that was the autographed version.
Yeah. No, the autographed versions are cheaper.
Yeah. So, Les, my first question to you is, it's thinking, from a long-term and a short-term perspective on things. As Eva has said, the attention industry, such as it is, has been so anxious to prove that this stuff works in the short term. This is the first time it's ever been thought of on the long term. But you've always been thinking about things in both dimensions. What do you make of this as a topic?
Well, I think Peter Field and I wrote this book, The Long and the Short of it, and I think the small contribution we've made with that really is just to make people realise that what works in the short term doesn't always do very much in the long term, and vice versa. And advertising does two jobs, and that those two styles of advertising work in different ways. And actually, sort of, there's a connection between that and the stuff we were talking about in the previous section, which is brand advertising, the stuff that works in the long term, works much more at the emotional level and at the system one, as Kahneman would call it, level. It's not primarily about communication, it's about how people feel and the associations they have with the brand, and about the implicit memories that they have. But it is all about building up memory structures, and you can't build up memory structures without some kind of attention.
But not just visual attention, though, as you'd say.
No,
yeah.
no. Actually, so I was thinking, with the previous panel in mind, auditory attention is something which, I mean, I don't... Do Lumen...
Dentsu did an enormous great study 2 years ago, which we presented on this stage about the power of podcasts and radio and musical genres and stuff like that. So, yes, we take the A and the V of AV communications very seriously.
Not just eye tracking, ladies and gentlemen. They'll do you some ear tracking as well.
Ear tracking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sound does interesting things to attention. We did a study some years ago with psychologist Daniel Mullensiefen, where we put different music tracks on the same piece of video, and it didn't just change how much people paid attention, but it changed what they paid attention to within the ad. So, and I experienced this as a subject in the study, that I saw different things. It was a vignette-style ad for Tropicana orange juice, people having breakfast in New York, and different.
I worked on that ad.
You may well have done.
I was at DDB. How do you like your eggs in the morning?
That's the one. So the original track was How Do You Like Your Eggs in the Morning by Dean Martin and someone else. We put Besame Mucho by Dean Martin onto it, a slower, more sort of melancholy track, and immediately you start to see different scenes, and you interpret them differently.
So and again, I think this will come. One of the things I'm particularly excited about, what we will learn, or what we are learning. I mean, most of the research has been done. We're now in the an analysis phase of it. You know, David Bassett, who was in the script, he's gone off.
He's there.
Are you still here? Go and fucking do some work. Do some analysis.
There's a deadline, David.
He's notorious for not working.
So I think these are the sorts of rich learnings that we're I mean, but going to you, Bram. One of the things that we've been talking about is putting this stuff to use. So obviously, as the strategist and planner here, you'll be given all this data. What are you hoping to learn, and what are you going to get out of it?
I think what we're hoping to learn is how to actually define the quality of the canvas upon which we are painting all of this stuff. So in order to unpack that a little bit, I don't know if anybody here has read the book How Music Works by David Byrne, lead singer of Talking Heads. And in this book he writes that he had this slow dawning insight about creation, which is that context, like the place in which things are performed, largely determines what you're going to write. So an example in that book is that the reason why music in medieval ages was really slow moving, very few key changes, is because it's performed in church halls, like long reverberation times. So if you start doing lots of key changes, it sounds, I think the technical term is, fucking awful. So
I love the way we're all channeling our inner Ritson now. You started this, Les. Your potty mouth.
He created the permission structure. We are all very happy about this.
He makes a lot of money.
So the point of that is that the medium and the context in which things appear have a really big impact, both on the amount of attention that a message can get, but also on the creative that you create off the back of that. So what we are hoping that this study gives us insight in, and what will allow us make attention plannable, is give us insight into the exact qualities of the canvas that needs to be put out there in order to secure the right amount of attention in the right contexts in order to deliver both short and long-term uplifts.
To build on that, a slightly more modern example than Gregorian chart is apparently when New Order used to make their tapes, they obviously make perfect sort of sound recordings. Then they put them in a cassette and then drive across the Pennines in a little Mini to work out if over the noise of a Mini you could make out the sound, which is one of the reasons why they went for that particularly clean sound, because no amount of dodgy diesel engines can kill that. And this is what I wanted to talk as well about, Eva. Obviously, we've been talking about the long-term memory encoding, the linking of the attention to the long-term memory encoding. But one of the things there is going to be about creative. And I think what's interesting at stages like this, perhaps less stages like this, but certainly in Cannes, there seems to be a sort of a nostalgia for the good old days when everyone watched 30-second TV ads, and that was what creative was. But now we can't have creativity anymore because we have mobile phones instead. But it sounds like, from what Bram's saying, and you're saying, part of this will be about understanding how to be creative in these new media formats. Is that right?
I think that's absolutely right, because when we discover the results, and obviously I've seen a bit of them already, we will know how much attention is necessary, is needed to start moving the needle, which obviously straight away should guide the creative on what is important in the first few seconds. And no, it's not just slapping the logo there, definitely not, but thinking about sound as an example, right? And then also the environment where we're going to be placing these ads. I mean, I can tell you that we are seeing differences in areas where you might not think there are differences, but context and the state of mind in which people are absolutely matters in driving results. So we are testing a bunch of different creative. Obviously, we need creative to test attention. So we will have a wealth of knowledge on what makes for good creative, which creative worked. Did they follow the brilliant basics? What were the brilliant basics for that particular platform?
Yes, I think what's interesting is we're already finding. I mean, Les is absolutely right. There's no formula for creativity, but there are certainly heuristics that you can sort of follow. And I think what's interesting is that we often assume in this industry that there is only one type of creativity, which is a 60-second or a 30-second ad, when thousands of years of posters have shown that you can have amazing, astonishing creativity in very different formats with very different assumptions. Trying to understand the heuristics of what we mean by creativity within an influencer environment or within a 5-second video is going to be quite an interesting topic, and one that many of our clients ask us about, and one that we'll be investigating. So I just want to finish now. We've got just a couple of minutes, so please do keep your answers brief. A big project like this is, like I say, a continuation of years of research. We've learned a lot, but already, and we're influencing the market an awful lot. I mean, it's interesting yesterday Snap announced that they were embedding Lumen metrics in everything that they do, and it's available via IS and DV. But already there's a backlash to that, going, oh my God, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of viewability, creating these rules. So my question to you both, all three, and I'll go in this order, is this is that we have learned a lot about attention, but what is your biggest hope for this bit of the research, and what's your biggest fear? We'll start here, because that means we end with Les's biggest fear, which is
spiders.
Yeah, exactly. So just quickly, what's your biggest hope for the research, and what's the biggest fear?
Well, as I started this presentation today, right, I said that the struggle between brand and demand is not new. It persists. So my biggest hope is that by having this powerful database and demonstrating the long-term sales impact, which is what the FDs want to see, what the CFOs want to see to unlock brand budget, that is actually going to happen, because we want to arm our clients with those numbers so that we can fuel the entire, refuel brand. And my biggest fear is Ritson just ripping it to shreds.
Although, to be honest, he's been on record a couple of times saying that Lumen is the future. And
I think I will brief him before we launch, asking him to be nice.
You can try it. I think trying to control Mark Ritson is even harder than controlling Les, I think. Bram, Les, we've only got 30 seconds each, if you could.
Very quickly. My biggest hope, my biggest dream of this is that this is a re-evaluation of the craft of communications planning. We have to make active decisions about this type of stuff. My biggest fear is the opposite of that, which is that we will automate the living daylights out of it and everybody ends up in the same place.
I think we're all saying very similar things. I mean, what we want to do is we want to learn some fundamentals about what makes people pay attention to ads, remember them, and then ultimately buy stuff. And we don't want to create some, clunky formula for making ads. But I think going back to sort of media planning, it's got to be better to trade on attention than simple exposure, because at the moment we're in a situation where we're selling ads to people that nobody looks at.
If it's not seen, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's maybe not served to a human, maybe served to a human but not actually paid attention to. And that's just burning cash, isn't it? So it's got to be better than that.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Eva, what's next?
What's next? Well, David has a lot of work to do on the analysis.
Yeah, get back to work, David.
What's next is we hope to launch this at Adweek in New York in October. We're almost done, so get ready to reset on your thinking about brand and attention. Thank
you very much, guys. A big round of applause, please.